Okay guys, I'm back and I'm doing another video and I'm doing the same book. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, drop a like. We're almost at 30 subscribers. Yay! Okay, so I'm pretty sure we left off at here, the other Minders, Webbs, and Dune said we'd been furious when he hatched. They had to throw him in the river to protect the other eggs. Him and Kestrel wanted to find that monster and use it when he fought. Okay, before I keep on going, make sure you go watch part 1 and 2 because you're going to be way confused what happens. So, he fought, but he was afraid if he ever did, he would hate himself, and so would everyone else. Thinking about what he'd nearly done to his friends made him feel like all the fire had been sucked out of him. He didn't want to be a violent, angry monster, even if Kestrel thought that would be an improvement, but maybe that was the only way to make the prophecy come true. Maybe that monster was his destiny. Okay. All right, Kestrel said dismissively. We're finished here. Anyway, I'll mark another failure in your scroll, Mudwayne. She snorted. A small flame into the air and swept out of the cave. Clay flopped down on the floor as soon as her red tail had vanished from sight. It felt like every one of her scales stinging from the burns. She's going to be so mean to you during your training tomorrow, she said to Cinema or whatever. Oh no, the Sea-Wing Dragonaut gasped. I've never seen Kestrel be mean before. That'll be so unexpected and out of character. Ow, Clay groaned. Don't make me laugh. I think my ribs are broken. Your ribs are not broken, Thompson said, poking him in the side of her nose. Dragon bones are almost as hard as diamonds. You're fine. Get up and jump in the river. No, Clay buried his head under his wing. Too cold. Jump in the river was Tamisia's solution for everything. Bored, catching bones, dry scales, brain overstuffed with history of the war. Jump in the river, she'd shout at wherever any of the other Dragonauts complained. She certainly did not care that she was the only one who could breathe underwater, or that most other Dragon's tribes hated getting wet. Clay didn't mind being wet, but he couldn't stand being cold, and the underground river that flowed through their cave home was always freezing. Get in, Tansia ordered. She seized his tail between her front talons and started dragging him toward the river. You'll feel better. I will not, Clay shouted, clawing at the smooth stone floor. I'll feel colder. Stop it. Go away. His protest went up in the cloud of bubbles, dumped him in the icy water. When he refaced her, she was floating beside him, ducking her head and splashing water over her scales like a beautiful overgrown fish. Clay felt like a gawky brown blob next to her. She splashed into the shallows and lay down in a submerged rock ledge with his head resting on the bank of the river. He wouldn't admit it, but the burns and ashes did feel better in the water. The current helped wash away the smoky rock dust caught between his dry scales. Still too cold, though. Clay scratched at the rock below him. Why couldn't there be just a little mud down here? Castor will be sorry one day when I'm queen of the sea winds, Tempsa said, swimming up and down the narrow channel. I thought only a queen's daughters or sisters could challenge her for her throne. Clay said Tunisia swam so fast, a tail like hers, so powerful, she could nearly empty the river with one big splash. Well, maybe the Sea Wind Queen is my mother and I'm a lost princess, she said, like in the story. Everything the Dragonauts knew about the outside world came from the scrolls picked up by the Talons of Peace. Their favorite was the Missing Princess, a legend about a runaway sea wind Dragonaut. Those loyal family tore up the whole ocean looking for her. At the end, she found her way home, and her parents welcomed her with the open wings and feast and joy. Clay always skipped the adventures in the middle of the story. He just liked the last part, the happy mother and father, and the feasting. The feasting sounded pretty great, too. I wonder what my parents are like, he said. I wonder if any of our parents are still alive, Tunisia said. Clay didn't like to think about that. He knew dragons were dying in the war every day. Kestrel and Webs brought back news of bloody battles, scorched land, and burning piles of dragon bodies. But he had to believe his parents were still safe. Do you think they'll ever miss you? Definitely, Tunisia flicked a spray of water at him with her tail. I bet mine were frantic with when Webb stole my egg, just like in the story. And mine tore apart the marshes, Clay said. They'd all imagined scenes of their parents' desperate searches ever since they were young Dragonauts. Clay liked the idea that someone out there was looking for him, that someone missed him and wanted him back. Tunisia flipped onto her back, gazing up at the stone roof with her translucent green eyes. Well, the Talons of Peace knew that they were doing, she said. Literally no one would ever find us down here. They listened to the river gurgle and the torches crackle for a moment. We won't be underground forever, Clay said, trying to make her feel better. I mean, if the Talons of Peace wants us to stop this war, they have to let us out sometime. He scratched behind his ear thoughtfully. Starflight says it's only 2 more years. He only had to hold on that long, and then we can go home and eat as many cows as we want. Well, first we save the world, Tempsia said, and then we go home. Right, said Clay. How they were going to save the world was a little fuzzy, but everyone seemed to think they'd figure it out when the time came. Clay pulled himself out of the river, his waterlogged wings heavy and drooping. He spread them in front of one of the torches, arching in his neck and trying to get warm. Feeble waves of heat whacked against his scales. Unless Tunisia said, Clay lowered his head to look at her. Unless we leave sooner, she said. She flipped over and pulled herself out of the water into the graceful motion Leave, Clay ouched, startled. How? On your own? Why not, she said. If we can find a way out, why should we have to wait another 2 years? I'm ready to save the world now. Aren't you? Clay wasn't sure. He'd never be ready to save the world. He figured out the Talons of Peace would tell them what they had to do. Only the 3 guardian dragons, Kestrel, Webbs, and Dune, knew where the Dragonauts were hidden. But the 3 was a whole network of Talons out there getting ready for the prophecy. We can't stop the war by ourselves. He said we wouldn't know where to start. Tanzania flapped her wings at him, an expansion showing him with cold droplets. We can too stop the war on our own, she said. That's the whole point of the prophecy. Maybe in 2 years, Clay said. Maybe by then I'll have found my dragoness side. Maybe then I'll be a furious fighter Kestrel wants me to be. Maybe sooner, she said stubbornly. Just think about it, all right? He shipped his feet. All right, I'll think about it. At least that way he could stop arguing with her. Tanzania cocked her head. I hear dinner. The faint sound of dismayed mooning echoed up the tunnel behind them. She poked Clay cheerfully, raced to the hall. She whirled and pounded away without waiting for a response. The torches in the battle room seemed dimmer and colder. Water was seeping under Clay's scales with folded his wings and swept his tail through the debris of the smashed rock column. Tumsum was crazy. The 5 Dragonauts weren't ready to stop the war. They wouldn't even know how to survive their own. Maybe Tumsum was brave and tough like a hero should be, but not. But Sunny and Glory and Starflight, Clay thought of all the things that might hurt them and wished he could give them his own scales and claws and teeth for the extra protection. Besides, there was no way to escape the caves of the Talons of Peace. Had made sure of that. Still, part of him couldn't help wonder what it would be like to go home now instead of waiting another 2 years back to the marshes, to the swamps, to the whole tribe of mudwings who looked like him and thought like him, and back to his parents, whoever they were. What if they could do it? What if the Dragonauts could escape and survive and save the world their own way? Okay, guys, that's when I'm going to end it here. Goodbye. Make sure you subscribe and like, and goodbye.